Welcome to Decarbonizing Today, a deep dive into the Edmonton Metro region's role in addressing the global climate crisis. In this episode, we have your Edmonton Global host, Michelle Hiltz, here with Kris Vanderburg, the Chief Operating Officer with Alexander Business Center.
What's new with you and what your job is and how things are going?
Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Right now at Alexander Business Center, we are growing. It is busy time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of development in the Edmonton region. Alexander First Nation is located about 45 minutes from the Heartland.
Right.
So we're one of the two closest nations. Alexander First Nation also has lands by Fort Assiniboine as well as Fox Creek. So it's a very busy region.
Yeah.
So we are on the economic side, which I represent, we are busy growing that capacity as quickly as possible so that we can participate. So everything we do, we're looking for training, we're looking for employment, we're looking for revenue, and we're looking for community investment. So
Great.
we're building that portfolio as quick as possible right now.
Great.
Yeah.
So Alexander Business Center started in 2018.
Yes.
And how many divisions do you have now?
Yeah. So in 2018, the previous council
Yeah.
decided it was time to start to participate in the region and get into business. So at that point, we started with a series of small partnerships.
Yeah.
And we've progressed now into having ownership in 14 different businesses.
Wow.
So service-based businesses and both supply-based businesses. And the goal is not just to stay within the region for Alexander, it's to continue to grow outside of those traditional land boundaries. Especially on the supply side.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to participate with great partners who operate within the Heartland region,
Right.
but enterprise-wide. So we
Right.
want to be selling our valves in Australia, in Puerto Rico, in Mexico to some of those suppliers that are also and proponents that are operating here.
Great.
Yeah.
So not only regional, but international.
That's the goal. That is the goal. And we're successful already. We are doing that.
Yeah.
We just need to continue to be at the table with these organizations early,
Yes.
so that we can showcase those goals.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times industry doesn't necessarily understand that nations can have that capacity and have those lofty goals.
Yeah.
I think industry currently still puts the nations in a little bit of a box.
Mm-hmm.
We see the term designated services a lot for Indigenous businesses, supplying gravel or civil or porta potties or labor, maybe some brushing work.
Right.
And I think that's great.
Yeah. But you can do more.
We can do more.
Yeah.
And, the goals, again, of Alexander is to maximize training, employment, revenue, community investment.
Right.
We need to do more.
Yeah.
And we need to do it outside of that region. So, again, that early engagement is critical there.
Right.
Yeah.
So not only in terms of looking at the services and products that can be supplied by those organizations, but also looking at additional equity ownership opportunities, right?
That's right. So, there's two ways that Alexander Nation, which I represent the business side again on, we look at opportunities twofold. One, the traditional consultation, the treaty side of things. So we have a group within the nation that makes sure that these projects do not impact treaty rights. So and the nation has done a great job in building those resources, building that capacity so that they can assess each and every opportunity to make sure it's not impacting hunting, fishing, gathering, trapping rights.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have a separate group that if all of those gates are passed, we're ready to do business. So we have a group that Alexander Business Center LP that represents all of our 14 businesses and partnerships.
Right.
We're here to try to work with the proponents to maximize training, employment, revenue, and community investment. So, and again, we need to be at the table to do that. We need to have those early engagements, early discussions.
Yeah.
But Alexander will not enter into business if it doesn't pass gate one. If it doesn't pass the consultation part, the traditional consultation part. And you're right. It's not just about participation. It is about equity as well. That's that next phase that Alexander needs to be at the table. But I think other nations as well, other approximate nations need to be at least have the opportunity to understand what a project looks like, what the risk profile is, what the returns could be, and be given a fair amount of time to participate. To go raise some funds, because there are a lot of good programs for communities to raise capital, and actually we can de-risk some of these projects for some of the proponents with some of the rates of dollars. Cheaper.
No, that's good. So, I mean, obviously you are strategically located close to the industrial heartland. So, some of the sectors, of course, that you focus some of your efforts on make sense locally.
Yes.
In terms of like oil and gas activities and, that kind of thing. But what are kind of your sector focuses, or do you have sector?
Yes, 100%. So we have a strategy. Again, if you look at what the goals of the nation are, and the ultimate goal of the nation is to increase the quality of life for its members, right? And to do that, again, they need to be participating in these projects. And you're right. There's projects, there's utility projects within Alexander's corridor. There's oil and gas, there's upstream, there's midstream, there's downstream, there's forestry, there's municipal, there's provincial, and we have to have a strategy, and we do have a strategy for all of those. So when you look at our portfolio of businesses, very quickly you will see and be able to pick out which businesses are focused on which. Our chemical business. So
which is a fairly new one.
So we're manufacturing certain chemical products and then we're distributing. And you will see a heavy focus on the Heartland region. With a lot of the products that we're manufacturing and distributing.
Right.
We own a valve company. We're manufacturing valves and we're distributing valves. A lot of those valve products are heavily focused on the Edmonton region.
Right.
So, we're sitting here today talking about clean energy. And we're talking about the next wave of investment to come in the region. Our supply divisions and some of our service divisions are quickly ramping up so that we can maximize participation. Other groups, the Fox Creek Reserve that Alexander has. We have civil groups that are working out there. We have a safety group that's headquartered in Whitecourt with over 100 staff. We have nurses, we have doctors, we have medical units, we have hydrovac units, really focused on that oil and gas. Right. So we have a diverse offering, and we're continuing to build those so that we can try to have touch points in all of the sectors that are coming across Alexander's lands.
Excellent. That's great. It's nice to have that diversity in economic activity, right? And also it probably aligns really well to some of the priorities in the nation too, when it comes to, healthcare possibly or environmental concerns and that kind of thing, right?
And it does. Again, when you look at the focus of the nation, Alexander Nation has approximately 2,400 band members. Roughly half live on the main reserve, half an hour from where we're sitting today, and the other half are primarily in the Edmonton region. And when you look at the development in this region, folks want to live at home. They want to work where they live. Most of the opportunities in the past for Alexander and other nations have been out in the oil patch. So you're living in camps. You're living in hotels. You're living 4 or 5 hours from home. And, some of the elders at the community say, we need our members home to keep the home fires strong. Right. And that's a term that resonates with me. And so we build a strategy and we focus on local jobs, local employment, and really targeting training programs, getting local folks trained in the right things. The things that these new carbon capture projects are going to need, or could be a new hydrogen project needs, or some other clean energy initiative that's coming to the region. We have to train the folks to the right opportunities. But again, full circle, we need to be at the table early to identify what those opportunities are, so we get the right folks trained in the right areas and they're ready when these projects are going to go.
So if we wanted to communicate to sort of say some industry players about how is the right way to engage with Alexander First Nation, Alexander Business Center, what kind of things would you recommend?
I think that, and that's a great question, and that's a great opportunity for industry, I think. And I think industry seems to be at different stages in this journey. They're all at a little bit different stages.
Yeah.
What I could say is the earlier, the better.
Yeah.
You know, we hear the term ESG being thrown around a lot, right?
Yeah.
The S, the social part. I mean, that's working with the nation, not just Alexander, the other nations in the region, right? And to get early, have that dialogue, figure out what it's important to the nation.
Yeah.
And start to work and maybe have to change some of their plans, industry's plans, or, you know, shift some things around a little bit based on some of the feedback. So, you know, to your question, just get in. We have a group that's specifically there to engage with industry on the consultation side. Yeah. We have a group specifically there to engage in industry on the business side.
Right.
And, you know, all I can recommend is as early as possible and build those relationships, you know, participate, come to the communities. And you know what, we've seen since 2018, we've seen a big uptick in that aspect.
Right.
We have large groups that have been operating for 25 years within a half an hour of the reserve that didn't even know it was there. Those same groups now are entering into long-term relationship agreements with the nation.
Great.
And we're outlining how we work together.
Yeah.
And they're starting to be there. And that's a big step.
Yeah, it's great to hear that, you know, I feel like we've just hit a different level of the way this engagement works and the way these partnerships can work, right? Yeah. So it's been good.
But there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go.
Sure.
And, you know, we want to be helping to guide and shape that with industry in the region. We want to be there to help. And again, like I said, everyone's at a different stage in their journey.
Yeah.
Some groups are still figuring out what this even means. You know, how do we engage? Do we even need to engage?
Yeah.
And then we have other groups that have been doing this a long time and they're getting pretty good at it. So we want to share some of those experience with maybe some of the groups that are doing really well. Yeah. With maybe some of those groups that are just starting the journey.
Yeah.
You know, it is exciting and there's a long way to go though still. Yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe just to talk a little bit more about the whole on reserve versus off reserve. So you do have some business activity that's actually happening on reserve.
We do, yeah. And again, this is a common misconception still that First Nations only really want to participate on the reserve.
Right.
And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Mm-hmm. The reserve boundary for nations, there's not a lot of opportunity on the reserve. Yeah. When you look at Alexander First Nation, you know, it's where folks live. It's where the programs and services are. You know, that's where the school is and the health center and, you know, public works buildings. But there's not a lot of opportunity there. Mm-hmm. So the off-reserve opportunities are where nations need to be. So again, when you look at Alexander, the goal is to increase the quality of life for its members. Yeah. That's why we're engaging in business. Yeah. You know, you look at the Heartland region with billions of dollars of planned projects. Yeah. You know, when you look at the on-reserve capital spend, you know, you might be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So from an economies of scale perspective, the nations need to be looking off reserve. Yeah. But you're right. There's still a common misconception that nations just want to stay home and work on the reserve. Yeah. That's not true.
Not true.
That's not true.
Yeah. I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit more on kind of the relationship between the First Nation and the business center, just so people get a better understanding of what that relationship looks like.
Yeah. So this is a unique model, and it's a model that I believe in, and I think other nations, you know, should look at as well. So actually, Alexander Business Center is owned by all 2,400 band members. Okay. So that's a unique, that's unique, right? Yeah. So everybody's got skin in the game. Everybody wants to see this grow. Yeah. Up to 50% of the revenue derived within the Alexander Business Center can go back to help fund underfunded programs within the community. Yeah. Again, common misconception is that the federal government, you know, provides nations all the money that they will ever need to run the programs and services. Right. The fact is that's not true. Mm-hmm. There's underfunded social programs, there's underfunded education programs, you know, and on and on and on. Every department within the nation is underfunded. Yeah. So the only way to combat that is to go find your own revenue, right? Yeah. And that's what we've done. Yeah. And so all 2,400 band members have a share in this business. all 2,400 band members want to see this succeed.
Yeah.
And we get pushed to grow this. Again, in 2018, we started with a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Fast forward now to 2024.
Yeah.
And we have 14 businesses and we have approximately 15 partnerships.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. And like you said, I mean, there's more work to do, but it's great to see the progress that you guys have made in this.
Yeah.
So that's good. So any last minute messages you want to communicate about what's happening at ABC?
Well, at ABC, we're growing.
Yeah.
We're growing and we're going to continuing pushing the mandate from those 2,400 band members.
Yeah.
The last minute message isn't necessarily about ABC. I think it's when I look around the room today, I see industry. I see a lot of optimism. I see a lot of capital budgets.
Yeah.
And my message would be to those folks, the proponents in the region. Yeah. We see ESG. We see that splashed around right now, which is great.
Yeah.
But now we need to see those same folks that are using that language to actually sit down with the communities and say, okay, what does S mean to you?
Yes. Yeah.
Alexander First Nation or other nations in the region.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And how do we work together?
Yeah.
How do we protect treaty right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, how do we support accommodation? How do we support business?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
What does success look like? And to have that open early dialogue. So again, my message would be to industry to, really take a focus and pick up the phone, come see the communities and learn, understand early, not after the business plans are done and after they're already groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So the key takeaway, engage and engage early.
Yes.
And that's
it. Honestly, that is it. By doing that, nations will have the time to properly put resources, and these resources are scarce. So training dollars, instead of training 20 carpenters next year, maybe a nation needs to be training 20 electricians. But without understanding and have that relationship with industry, those scarce resources are probably going to be allocated wrong, right?
Yeah.
So again, early engagement, you got it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kris.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode of Decarbonizing Today to continue exploring how decarbonizing tomorrow starts today in the Edmonton Metro region.